What's up, everyone? Michael Heath with Get Automating, bringing you part 4 of APIs through the lens of the Power Platform. Today, we're going to be building an appy on the lappy, gonna make you happy. Anyway, I got my holiday lights up. That made me extremely happy. I'm a little bit too old to be getting up 25 feet or whatever it was on a ladder. Just doesn't make sense, but I got it done. Yeah, I got my neighbor to get up on the ladder.
Get Automating, enhancing humans daily.
All right, so we're climbing that ladder today. We're going to learn even more about APIs, building upon the work that we've already done. Going to be back at that Jelly Bean, Jelly Belly API. This time, we're going to take that information, we're going to call that API, and we're going to start to extract that information into our Power Apps application to display to the user, to work with it within the app. We've got a lot of work to do. So without delay, let's check it out. All right, folks, we're going to be smoking through this today. We're in Power Apps. We're going to lay down the groundwork real quick. We're going to stand this thing up and get going. So first thing I'm going to do is insert a container. Boom, container is in. Let's drag that down. All right, I'll step out of that and I'm going to add another container. We don't want a container within a container. So we're just going to move this right over here. All right, it ain't pretty, but that's what it is. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is add a text input component. That right here. That's good enough. All right, let's add a button. Put that right there. And we'll add a text label as well. Now, the text label is really just going to be for a placeholder. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But this is just to give us some visibility into what our requests are going to be doing. And lastly here, we're going to create a gallery. So this is our shell of an app. We've got it pretty much situated the way we want to, and we'll build upon that here as we go along. So first things first, back in our APIs, we need to get some data. So the easiest way to get that data is going to be through Power Automate. We're going to come over here, we're going to click Power Automate, and we're going to create a new flow. We're going to choose blank. All right, first things first, let's name our flow. All right, so we named it GetJellyData. Power Apps V2 is what we're going to be using here. Now we're going to use our HTTP action. All right, here it is. Going to select that. We've got our get method, and we're going to drop in our API. All right, so here's the API we want. Again, should be very familiar with that if you followed along the other parts of the video series. Now, the queries here, we're actually going to look for group name, which is something new, but what we're trying to do is understand, hey, give me back a list of all the beans in a particular group and tell me a little bit about those. So just like we did previously, though, that group name is going to be dynamic. So where do we get that value again? Well, that's going to be through user input. Now, that input is not going to happen via the flow anymore. That input is going to be relayed from Power App. So we're going to pop in flavor, and it's going to ask for that input. So down here, we need to look for that, and we grab that flavor right there. Now we need to return that data to Power Apps. So we're going to come over here and look for the respond action. And we can see right here, if we click on Power Apps, respond to Power App or flow. And what are we going to be doing there? Well, we're going to be sending back that response. So the response is from, if we click see more, we'll find it. And what we want to return is that body. So now that we have that information, we can go ahead and save out our flow, and it will return us to Power Apps. All right, so we're back here at Power Apps. Now we want to select our button and have it execute upon that flow to return that data. All right, so on the onSelect property, we're going to end up setting a variable. That variable's name is varResponse. We're getting that flow. So we're going to run that GetJellyData flow that we just created. And we want to provide an input to that variable that we're asking for that dynamic value. And so the way we're doing this is we're referencing text input 1 here, whatever's typed in the box is going to get relayed as the response that's being asked in the float. And the last step here is we want to ensure that the response, which we are piping right now to the variable, we want to make sure that that's displayed just to check out, make sure that we're getting a good return. So all we're going to do is come over here and reference that variable within this text box. Again, this is just for our sanity check. So if we run this right now and we pipe in our sour flavors, which is a valid group, we're going to get that response there, which is our JSON table. Now, there's a couple other things we need to do here to ensure we're getting the right data. We're parsing through it, just like we did in Power Automate. We had to parse through it. We have to do the same thing in Power Apps. Now, the particular expression that we just created is more or less for a test run. What this ends up looking like is this. So we have what's called a ClearCollect, which will delete records from a collection. That's right. What we're doing here is going to be creating a collection, which is a table in Power Apps to store this information, parse it out, and give us the ability to access those records. So again, ClearCollect, delete previous records. When we hit that submit button, our collection called colFlavors. And then for all this data, we're going to parse that JSON. Again, this should be familiar. We're running that flow, getting that data, and then we're going to parse this out. Now, my particular records have flavor name, bean ID, description, image URL, and ingredients. The ingredients I'm using in Concatenate because the ingredients table in the JSON output is kind of nested within. So you might have to get tricky and strategize on that depending on what your output is. Use Copilot, it's your best friend. It can help you structure this appropriately. But essentially what we're doing here is creating some tables so that we have our records to digest within the app and call upon them within an expression. We can go ahead at this point in time and delete our variable response just so we don't have any errors. And it's good time, get in the habit of saving things out. If you don't have any errors, save your progress, good to go. Okay, so now if we go ahead and try this out, we're going to hit play and we're going to submit. And if we come over here now to our variables, to our collection, we'll see that we have our collection. And if we view that, we've got our bean ID, our description, our flavor name, our image URL, and then we've got our ingredients. But again, that's listed in another table. So, but we have the data that we can reference. Again, there's a number of different ways to achieve this. I just think it works out better to drop it in its own table because of the way the output is structured within our returned output. All right, and so now what we need to do is connect our gallery to the collection where we're storing this data. So easy peasy. All right, so now we've got a number of different items here. Not exactly helpful, so let's just start changing some of this around. We selected that first property, which would be title. Let's go ahead and see what we have here. We have flavor name. All right, perfect. So then where it says 38, which is the bean ID, we're going to actually give it, let's give it the description. Perfect. Now in sample image, if we were following this item dot format, we could go ahead and look at image URL, but that won't work. And the reason being, if we come over here to our collection and view this collection, we notice that it's an image URL. This can be finicky, especially if it doesn't end with an image file name. It's not recognizing it as an image. So what I like to do here is just wrap this in text, and that will display our image. So already we have our main gallery, but we want to take it a step farther. So when we click on the caret here, we want to drill into that particular bean information, which we already have from our API. So we're going to create a new screen here. And I've already added 3 labels here as placeholders. And I've accelerated this, and I've also added some labels as well for text holders. This will hold our information. So I've got some labels to hold our data. I've modified the font size and the weight. And then we got an image over here as well. Now we need to hook up that data. So let's get our navigation working. For this one, we're going to select it. And then we're going to come up here on select. We are going to point it to the new page, navigate to the screen sub, no screen transition unless you want one. And then we are referring to the parent record selected, which is this one. So now we can return to our page here and start to populate this data. So for flavor name, we're going to refer to the gallery 1, the selected item, and flavor name. For description, same thing. So pop that in here, grab our description. For image, we're going to do the same thing there as well. Here, and get that guy in here. Now keep in mind, I still have to wrap this in text. So what would normally be gallery 1 selected image URL, I have to wrap that to get the item to display correctly. Now, ingredients is the only tricky one, again, because it's going to have that nested table within it. So we have to do some funky business with that, but it's not too terrible. All right, so we're going to come up here and we're going to drop in concat. That puts all of this information together, and we're really combining our table data into what it is here. All right, so that doesn't look too pretty. So what we want to do is clean it up a little bit here using some other functions. Using our concat, using a substitute, we're looking to add a bullet and remove some of the trailing commas. And so that's what we're doing in this particular formula here. So if we take a look now, we've got a nice table and a functional application. All right, so let's come back over to our app here and test this bad boy out. Let's grab the cocktail classics. And these names are available in the API documentation. I'll put that in the link below. Click our button here. We got our gin and tonic, margarita, mimosa. Didn't even know they existed. But if we want to drill into those and the ingredients, we can see right here. Again, not the most beautiful, but you get the idea there. The jelly bean looks like it's metallic. All right, so there you have it. We've got our API and we're dumping our contents in the app. We've got a nice user interface to interact with that data. Now, of course, this is jelly beans, but think about all the assets, all the resources in your organization and what you do and how those could be applicable to a solution in the Power Platform. We got more episodes on APIs coming very soon. We're going to be exploring Copilot Studio and APIs, going to look at authentication and APIs. Got a ton of stuff coming, so stay tuned. Until then, get automating.